Welcome skiers and snowboarders to Snowtober. I'm Jonny Moseley, and I am really psyched to be joined by two legends, two innovators in their field. As bad as the pandemic is, I'm not sure I would have ever got these two together in person. So this is working out over Zoom. First off, up in your screen, double Olympic gold medalist, Mr. Ted Ligety, and we'll talk about him for a second. And then also on your screen, the founder of Foundation Training, Dr. Eric Goodman. Now, starting with Ted, since I'm a skier, I'm a big fan. I want to show some footy of Ted, some pictures of Ted. Of course, Ted is a double Olympic gold medalist, as you can see on your screen there. The upper left-hand corner is I happened to be there for both of his Olympic golds. This was when he was a young, I think 19-year-old, and was the winner in the combined Olympic gold medal. 21. Okay, I gave you a couple of years. Amazing performance under the lights. I just happened to be in the stands sitting next to his mom. I really didn't even know him at the time. An amazing moment, and followed him from there on. Then he did the incredible and went back in the next Olympics in Sochi and won another gold medal, this time in the giant slalom. And this time I was there again, but I was in even tighter, Ted. This time we were in Russia and security was lax. Like, I could ski around the mountain. Usually at the Olympics, they won't even let you near the course. You can't get near, you can go in the stands, which is like, might as well be a mile away from the skiers. I was able to leave my venue, ski over right next to the course, and here I am with a slow motion selfie as Ted Ligety comes across the line to win Olympic gold medal number 2. Here we go.
I saw this when you posted it.
So I inserted myself into your win. And then watch the pan over. You can see how much closer I am than anyone. There's the crowd. See? I'm all the way up the hill. That's where everyone else was. Anyway, great moment. I've been a big fan of yours. I love watching you ski. I love talking to you about skiing. And probably every time we talk, I'm going to show that video or reference that video. I really enjoy it. All right. Perfect. So you've gone on to create a great company called Shred Optics. You guys do back protection and great eyewear. And I somehow did that during your whole career, which is impossible. You can see right there the Shred goggles, of course, available at Peter Glenn, Ski and Sports at peterglenn.com. These are the different products. We're going to get to this later in the show. But first, I want to introduce our next guest and kind of get into the meat of what we're talking about. Our next guest is Dr. Eric Goodman, a legend in his own right, the founder of what's called Foundation Training. And you can see here in the pictures, these are significant because this is, Lance Armstrong in the bottom left, my hero, Kelly Slater in the bottom right. You got Gabby Reese up there. He, essentially to save his own back, he kind of developed an incredible technique for training that just really uses your body weight that all these athletes have adopted on their own. And welcome, Dr. Eric Goodman. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me come on with you guys. This is awesome.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to come up with this, technique, method, what your foundation training?
Yeah, it's kind of both those things. There's a lot of technique to it. What started it was I was in chiropractic school. I was suffering some of my own pains that had been going on since I was a teenager. I played a lot of sports. I didn't compete at the level that you guys do, but I was playing water polo. I was playing ice hockey. I was getting into kind of a collegiate level weightlifting component, and I was doing heavier things and blew out my own back. I was in chiropractic school and basically becoming the ideal chiropractic patient at the same time, where things just weren't getting better. So I kind of took it into my own hands. I decided not to get the surgical intervention that was being requested, which was spinal surgery, which is double fusion. So they wanted me to fuse L4, L5, L5S1. They wanted me to basically fix in place when I was 27 years old, by the way. fix in place these two extremely important structural elements of the human body. I was lucky enough to know that they were important. You know, I was lucky to be a chiropractic student kind of at the very end of my education there. So now I'm talking about it in hindsight. Now it's 12 years later, and it's this program. It's this very, very obsessively, compulsively designed exercise protocol that does help people with a lot of different types of spinal injuries and hip injuries and repetitive stress disorders and imbalances. What it started with me was just lower back strain. It was just, I need my lower back to get stronger because it's not strong enough to hold the torso. It's not strong enough to hold my weight. When I sit on it, it compresses. When I stand on it, it compresses under me. Everything just gets tight and painful. So what foundation training represents is this sort of this journey through understanding my own injuries, using biomechanics, rehabilitation ideas, and body weight, and now breathing very much as well, to challenge my body's weakest points that I slowly and steadily discovered over maybe about a 5-year period from about 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11 into 2012. I was into this discovery of the weakest parts of my body, and I would attack those. I would try to make my body shake when it was weak and tired in the places that I knew were continuously causing me what was at that time a very debilitating injury. So foundation training now in 2020, it's a program. There's protocols, there's exercises that express a lot of really hard, complex ideas in biomechanics in very simple forms. So I get real excited to share it with people now. It's so much easier than it used to be.
Were you surprised when people like Kelly Slater approached you or started, utilizing your technique, and how did that? It seems like you are in the surf world a bit. Did it surprise you that he came?
Yeah, of course.
To your method?
It still surprises me that I've gotten to meet some people, and I've gotten to help them, and I've gotten to, discuss my theory. Like, I've gotten to discuss my idea, this thing that I've been trying to come up with for pretty much every day of my life for the past 12 years. I get to sort of bounce it off these individuals, and I got to teach Kelly a bunch of stuff from like 2009, 10, 11, maybe 12 or so. I got to teach him the really early phases of foundation training, and through doing that, he was one of a handful of people that really opened up a lot of doors to other athletes and other individuals utilizing the work. It's not for everybody. It's not like this thing where you do foundation training and all of a sudden you get all of the benefits the first time. You hear these stories of what people have experienced with it, and typically it's people that have really gone down the rabbit hole of learning it and practicing it and understanding it. I would say that through Kelly and a few other of that higher echelon athlete, thousands of athletes have kind of inadvertently learned about this work, and a lot of them are at that Olympic and professional level. So I'm always surprised, I'm always excited, but more than that, I'm really curious, like, what can it do for them? Are they going to have the experience that some people have had of really, really altering their career with this work? That's always the hope.
Well, it's amazing. I had not heard of it before I had a discussion with Ted, and we're gonna do, just so you guys are at home, I didn't say, we're gonna do some exercises with Dr. Goodman coming up here, and Ted, and he's gonna kind of guide us through some of the exercises. But I had never even heard of the foundation training until I did an interview with Ted in the spring, and we were really talking ski technique, and we were digging into an innovation that Ted had come up with. And so I want to go back to the screen share here for a second. And, Ted really, you may not know, but Ted is famous for, winning gold medals, but he really reinvented ski technique, the turning technique, which seems impossible to reinvent something so basic, but essentially started turning much earlier on the ski than any other skiers. And we're not going to go into that a lot here. If you guys want to see a total down and dirty breakdown of Ted's technique, you can click the link at the end of this program and go there. It's on YouTube. He really goes deep into it. It's a really fun interview. I highly recommend it. But really what came out in the interview was the fact that his back has been a little bit, tired. He's a veteran on the World Cup tour. He's been on there since he was a kid. And this kind of, action, this kind of torque you put on your body has taken its toll. And I asked him what he did to exercise these days. And he basically said, I do foundation training. That's all I do. And so that's where this started.
Not all I do, but
well, he said I do 4-to-1 posterior exercises, the thing I remember. And I've been thinking about that all summer. So now I want to bring Ted in. And Ted, tell me how you sort of arrived at this at the foundation training.
So I mean, as many people who ski know, it's your like inflection and rotation and under high G-force for a lot of the sport, and especially in ski racing, your inflection rotation with high G's and then icy bumps. And so it's like the worst possible mechanics for your back in general. And over the years, I just started having more and more back problems where, it started off where I'd have to take 1 or 2 days off of skiing and then it would get better. And then slowly got to the point where I was taking a month off and I couldn't ski. And then to the point where I was having pain that would go from my back all the way down to my toe, and tried to ski for a little while with that, and then ended up getting cortisone injections, and then kept getting worse and worse until I had back surgery. And that helped. That was a big step in the right direction for me. I had microdiscectomy, but I still kept having issues and episodes where I'd be out for a week or so, or this and that, and just trying to experiment with different ways to solve the problem with some sort of finality, not just running into episode after episode. And I ran into foundation training and doing all that research, trying to figure out different ways of doing it, and started dabbling a little bit in it. I had some trainers that actually kind of like poo-pooed on it because they didn't like the extension and this and that. But as I kept having issues, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to like do this all spring, summer, fall, and see what it does and see how it goes, because I can still do my normal workouts. This is supplementing my normal workouts. I can take some of the philosophies. I can add these exercises into my morning routine. And I'm not going to say I don't have back issues from time to time, but I don't have the back issues that's put me on the sideline for more than a day. And I feel a lot stronger in that. My posture has changed. Things like that. I'm 36 years old now, so I'm pretty old in our sport, and had a lot of injuries, but now my back is not one of the things that I feel like it's holding me back now. So I credit foundation training for helping me, supplement my training to the point where I'm not having to worry every turn if I'm going to blow my back out. I can really go at it and stay strong in that area.
I had read, the skiing, it takes a toll on your back from early days. And you don't necessarily always do the work you need when you're younger to sort of, counterbalance your posterior. Eric, were you a skier? Did you have skiing in mind? Does skiing fall into the, does it make sense that a skier would?
It makes sense a lot. It absolutely makes sense. I'm sitting here looking. I told you guys I would kind of talk a little bit about this. So I've been in winter sports my whole life. I'm 39, and I think that I was on a pair of skis by the time I was probably 4. But I wasn't competitive or anything like that. We were just a family that I grew up in Florida, and my family would go to Colorado every single year, once or twice a year for a week or 2. And we would ski every day, and I got lessons when I was a kid, and then I got into snowboarding as a teenager and really just took on snowboarding for the rest of my life so far. But I've always been around skiing a lot. Now my whole family lives just outside of Boulder, Colorado, so it's become much more of our lives even over the years. But I remember you're sitting there in front of the Peter Glenn sign, Johnny, and that's where I bought. That's where my family, that's the only real shop in South Florida at the time, back in 1980s and 90s. So we got all of my original ski gear, my first snowboard, my everything was at Peter Glenn. Right on, I don't know if they know, but there was a store, I think, on either Sunrise or Oakland Park Boulevard. But it's such a nostalgic thing to see that sign behind you. It's kind of cracking me up.
That's funny.
But
it really blocks all the crap on my desk really well too. So
But so regarding mechanics though, so there's a disorder called Osgood-Schlatter's that happens to a lot of teenagers and a lot of young athletes and a lot of young skiers and a lot of young volleyball players and a lot of young jumping or absorption athletes, where you're facing forward and for some reason your knees learn to take more of your body weight's absorption than your hips do. And the way that that happens is your abdomen gets very strong, your chest gets very strong, your quadriceps and calves, they get very, very strong. But at the expense of the back of you, the hamstring muscles, the gluteus, the glute muscles, the lat muscles on the back of you are very, very important for back pain and health. So when I hear of an instructor or a trainer of any kind saying extension is bad, that's like saying Republicans or Democrats are bad, in my opinion. It's just like it's like you're not thinking of the whole picture. You're just having an opinion. You're not thinking of how the body works as a whole. One of the things that foundation training and the theory of foundation that has been evolving now for 12 years has done is it has made it extension-based work safe and okay because it is strength-based extension, not range of motion-based extension. We're using extension to couple the posterior chain, the back of the body, with the rest of the body. Ted and Jonny, you mentioned this 4-to-1 ratio. What Ted's talking about with that is our whole lives are forward now. Everything kind of goes in front of us. So we have to quadruple the effort we put on the back of our body that pulls us up and makes us much more ambulatory, makes us the bipedal creatures that we are. We have to get really defiant against our tendency to draw forward and convert iPhones and books and ski poles. So because of that, you're always wanting to chase the strength at the backside of your body, just ever so subtly dominant to the strength on the front side of your body. And as a skier or a snowboarder or a surfer or anybody, if you move, you need to really focus on that in our modern era. And I'm not saying go do deadlifts, although I believe deadlifts and things are great exercises done well. I'm saying shift the way that your body weight is held. So it's just body weight. Sometimes it looks like yoga if you know nothing about yoga, but it's very, very deliberate body weight motions that square the hip joints, challenge the muscles that suspend the pelvis, and then challenge the muscles that lift the torso. And when you get those strong, your skiing improves. It's that simple, regardless of if it's on that centrifugal arc, that force absorption. Well, you're shifting the force absorption to your butt muscles and your lat muscles instead of your knees and your abdomen and your shoulders. So you're going to feel better throughout that arc. You're going to maintain more energy throughout that. And it's biomechanics transcends individual sport. Biomechanics is how your body performs the action it's performing. So if you improve your overall biomechanics and allow your body's weight to be absorbed by the areas very specifically, designed to absorb most of your body's weight, whatever you do with your body is very likely going to become more efficient.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions in there. You guys act like extension is something, I don't even know what technically is extension. So, but I figure maybe what we can do here is, we can run through some of the exercises. Ted and I will kind of get in them, and we can have a kind of a chat along the way about some of those questions. Does that sound good, Ted?
Yeah, perfect.
I need to do something, man. I'm like curled up in a ball.
Sitting all day.
Like this. Yeah, that was one of the questions I had, Dr. Goodman, was you had said in one of the videos you said, and you just touched on it there, was that our bodies don't move like they used to move. And when you say used to move, do you mean like Cro-Magnon days, like hunting gathering, or just pre-tech?
And not even pre-tech. I mean, just we drive everywhere. We walk a lot less. Most of our information is now in front of us, just a little bit more convergent. It's like as technology goes up, the visual field of the human experience converges.
Okay.
So as that's happening faster and faster, we have to do divergent exercises that open up the front of us and allow space at the clavicles and allow our head to kind of move back into its healthier positions instead of forward. So it's not, we can go back to like Pleistocene era, prehistoric stuff, but I wasn't there. I have a book that I wrote about it. And I wrote about this, the idea of what our ancestors were and what they had to get through for us to have the body that we have today. And I don't use it scientifically other than to say, get off your ass, do something with the body that these generational ancestors worked extremely hard for us to be able to enjoy. Don't let it sit and become, kind of a victim and almost an assailant upon itself, which is what most chronic pains tend to be. Your body is kind of fighting against itself because you're not doing the minimum corrective mechanics. Sometimes the minimum dietary corrections that need to be made also for a lot of chronic pains. That can be a big thing for certain people. But there's just a few switches that need to be turned on in order for the body to really move well. And the biggest ones are, one of them is not extension. Extension is kind of the old original extend. What we mean when we say that is lifting your spine into extension, like a cobra pose or something like that in yoga. The way that I teach it is I just want the muscles that surround the extension joints, I just want them strong. That's all. I don't want them to be extraordinarily mobile. I just want them stable and strong. They want to be able to communicate with the bigger muscles around the pelvis, the hamstrings, the butt muscles. So if you have, let me know if I'm losing you at the same time, because I don't want to go down the road. Sometimes I'll accidentally dive down.
No, I think it's great. I think what we should do is let's start in the first. I think the first one we've got teed up is a founder with rotation. Let me double check here. You picked out a few exercises or 4 exercises for us to use and as skiers. And I'm curious to get Ted's take if these are the ones he's been using. I think it's the rotation founder.
I was going to say, I believe this is the internal rotation founder. And the idea with this one is very simple. It's turn on the muscles that we need to engage the most of your body weight.
Okay.
So what we're going to do
is turn on the muscles that we need the most to engage your body weight. Okay.
To basically absorb the forces of the weight of your torso over your hips as you're going down the mountain. So you're going to see me position my buddy Evan here on screen. And what you're going to see is I'm going to make the outside edges of his feet parallel or even a little bit further. Notice he goes almost a little pigeon-toed. Okay?
Yeah.
You'll see he's paying a lot of attention to the foot position. And I'm going to give him 3 points of contact on his feet to push into the ground. The big toe joint, the small toe joint, and the heel. Okay? So really do pay that extra attention. Notice we're rotating the hip joints in pretty far, at first uncomfortably far, especially if you're trying to squeeze your butt muscles. Don't squeeze your butt muscles here. Press your big toes into the ground. Notice that he's got these measuring sticks on his rib cage and he's kind of lifting his torso off of his pelvis. That's a little
you talk about that's what you mean by the measuring stick is you're talking about your spine being flat against or up top against something.
It's your spine is basically leveraging, every inhalation is taking your rib cage away from your pelvis to the best of your ability. You're inflating into the lungs, which are very high and far back in the rib cage. So don't inflate just to the front, inflate the back of the rib cage. And the elbow details and things, I'm not as worried about those. I'm worried about the foot positioning on the ground. And then notice that his hip joints just carried him back. And as that happened, his knee joints almost looked at each other just a little bit more. As the hips drew back, the spine stayed long. And now his arms are counterbalancing away from the weight of his hips. All of his weight is felt in the backside of his body right now. All right. So if you're doing this, you're feeling your back muscles, your butt muscles, your groin muscles, your calf muscles. Okay. You're feeling your weight push through the feet like you're pushing against the ground, as if your feet were tripods at the big toe joint, the small toe joint, and the heel.
Should I be actively rotating my knees in?
Not aggressively, just so that they don't rotate out. Just stop them from rotating out, okay?
Yep.
Your knees are slightly bent. Your knees are behind your heels and your hips are way back as far as they can go. I can see both you guys. You look good. I can tell you guys have been doing this stuff. The biggest thing here is that the back of your skull is lifting. It's not looking up like you're trying to look over something. It's actually looking up like you're trying to look over a cliff edge that's directly under you. And when you stand up, like Evan just did, you're going to use that back side of your body, the hamstring tension, the back tension, and you're going to stand straight up using those muscles. You can relax the arms, relax everything. Now, The idea with these exercises is take your time, learn them one at a time, go back a few times, make sure that what you're doing looks similar to what I'm showing on here. And it should always feel when you stand up from these that your body feels a little bit lighter because you're basically dispersing your force more accurately. You're dispersing your weight more accurately. That's the purpose of each of these poses.
And I know you use some Tabata style intervals. Like it's amazing. When I first started watching these videos, I thought, it looks kind of easy, and you probably think, wait, how do I get a workout? But you do this, you're already starting to shake in the backside. So do you do how many sets, how many reps, if you're just starting out?
So what I would recommend is everybody learn it first. Learn the exercise standalone for like a day or two. Get it down, maybe even like 3-4 days a week, whatever it takes. The Tabata style, I love. It was introduced to me by our top trainer, who is Jesse Solis. And he started bringing Tabatas into all of our different exercises. He kind of has a much more intense style of exercising with it, which I have adopted and love. But the Tabata is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 8 rounds. All right. And in doing that, it's like a sprint. If you remember back in the day when you guys were right in the peak of probably both your conditioning, was the craze of high intensity interval training. So you probably did a ton of high intensity interval training. And this is sort of an isometric version of that. 20 seconds as well as you can, 10 seconds rest. 20 seconds as well as you can, 10 seconds rest. We would usually couple 2 or 3 poses for a Tabata. So let's do one more. And then we would then couple those for the 20 on, 10 off, 20 on, 10 off, just alternating the poses.
All right, let me pull up the next one. Ted, what's your program? How do you do that specific exercise, and how long do you do it for?
Yeah, so I do like a founder, like kind of like flow, where it's like with starting, like I've normally do like the wider stance. It's he has sometimes with the arms back and then arms forward, and then going down and stretching the hamstrings with some like rotations for the thoracic. And then I like the one where you're putting your forearms on your shins, so you're really like engaging your lats. Do that, and then I do like the elbows together, the pumping there, and then just the good mornings. So I have like that flow. It's probably about the amount of time I'm holding each one. It ends up being about 5 or 6 minutes. And then doing the woodpecker and the lunge and that stuff too. So that's like every morning before I ski or work out, I do that round of stuff. And then when I'm getting up onto the hill, I'll do like another round of it too, just like stay strong there in the back and just elongate. And then after skiing, I actually do like a lot of like opening up and like chest openers and stuff like that. And then some of this as well afterwards, just like, cause you like spend the day on a chairlift, your like legs are up underneath you. You're like, you ski like this, everything's like this. So it's like, you're like stuck. You're like so engaged through here after a day of skiing. That like, I need to like, just like open up again. So like opening my rib cage and just like getting back up to like being able to stand straight up after a day of skiing, because it's just like so much like just rolled in like a ball. So use this as well to help supplement that piece of it.
Yeah, those positions, none of those ranges are bad. Like any of those positions that you feel stuck in after a day of skiing, individually they're fine. Your body can go through them, no problem. But if you don't make the corrections, your body just slowly adapts towards that being more regular of a position for it to hold. So you're kind of meeting the adaptive needs of your body throughout the day, just like you meet your nutritional needs.
It's amazing how just that exercise we just did right there, like how much it fired and made me feel better. Like how much I feel like I'm like more awake even. And I know it sounds like hooey, but just that one move, like woke me up. So that's
I made a career off that feeling incredible. Right there. I really have. I made a whole career off that feeling. And I love sharing that feeling with people so much. So I became a chiropractor in the first place. I like to watch somebody get better. It makes me feel better personally. And there's just like a really nice exchange in that human experience of helping another person. And then all of a sudden, that adage of teach a man to fish started to really resonate in my head of, I don't want my patients to be dependent on me. I don't want anybody to be dependent on me as a human being. I want to go surfing. I want to enjoy my life. I want to feel good. I want to help people. But I don't want to feel the absurd obligation of helping people that can sometimes be felt. And in teaching people to take care of themselves, like what we just did, Jonny, was basically a lesson one in self-care. If something hurts, you can do something about it most of the time. You just have to do something about it. You can't think it through. You have to do something about it right away, actively. Usually strain is protective. 90+% of the time, strengthening an area is going to at least improve the area. So it's a great entry point. If something hurts, it's a great idea and you don't have to be a doctor to do this, by the way. You can look at an anatomy book, look at the joint, the area you're trying to protect, and what connects around it. What's in its periphery, and then what connects to those things. Maybe just try to feel them connect. That alone brings stability to a joint. And that's the entire basis of the theory of foundation training, is connecting dots around injuries so that the injury feels protected, feels like it doesn't have to be constantly in response and inflamed. And that's kind of how our nervous system works. It needs to be coaxed a little bit.
It's funny you brought up, you said, you can self-treat and get an anatomy book out. When I came back for 2002, the first contest they let me back in, the World Cup, I dinged my back. I did L5 right before a jump, froze up, crashed, and I went to Vail to rehab. And I'm staying in Vail, and I was going to rehab, and it was minor. It was just a bulging disc, but it was, putting my leg to sleep and all that. And I go to this yoga class, and I'm going to this class, and this older lady, like really fit older lady, I tell her about my back, and she looks at me like, well, you got to get the curve back in your back, like, you idiot. Don't you know this? Your back is curved like this. Like, you should understand that's where your body has to follow that curve too. And it's crazy because ever since then, like, that's what I do to when I know when my back is out of whack and I have to like find that curve again. But it's interesting.
That's it. And what that lady did is she gave you probably a lifetime experience of seeing people go through the arc of pain that can sometimes ruin lives. I've seen it ruin a lot of lives. That same sensation you had, Jonny, that numbness, that frustration, that same crazy symptom. I know people that I personally know people that have committed suicide because of that symptom. They went down the rabbit hole of drugs and surgeries that failed. They got addicted to pretty gnarly drugs, and their frustration into their 60s, they decided that was that. I know people that accidentally died on this table for that surgery, for a microdiscectomy. Complications of that surgery, the person was younger than me. I'm 39. The person was younger than me getting a microdiscectomy, and they died from complications of the surgery. We don't know what the complications were. But that symptom is so easy, and what that lady told you is a lifetime of experience that the people that do it right, they just get their body to homeostasis. And that curve, that neutral curve, whichever one it is, if it's up high at the neck or the middle of the spine or the bottom of the spine, doesn't matter. There's a homeostatic point in which it communicates best with everything around it. And she was brilliant in telling you just to get your body to where it got. Yeah.
Well, it's the exercises. These are the exercises that get you there. Should we do another one, Ted?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do. Sorry, I didn't link them together there for you, but we got off talking about stuff, and that's great too. So, all right, this is lunge decompression. Yeah, I love this one.
Before you start,
all right, here we go. Oh, okay.
Give it just pause for a second because I want to give it a quick rationale for this is a decompression exercise. When an exercise in foundation training is titled decompression, it is for a very specific goal of increasing the volume of the lungs around the rib cage.
Okay.
So you're going to pay a lot of attention to the hand position of this one. All right. You're going to pay a lot of attention to the inhale and exhale and to the constant inflation, especially of the circumference of the ribs, the back of the ribs too. Okay. So as you're going through this exercise, pay very big attention to breathing as tall into the rib cage as you can.
Okay. All right. So lunge decompression, take it away.
Yeah. So a lunge decompression is a split stance exercise. And the most important thing in a split stance when we're teaching it like this is that your hips are square. Notice that the model's feet, Evan's feet, are both going in the same direction, like he was just walking straight ahead. He's walking in a straight line. The back of his head is going to lift up really high, long enough to elongate his torso. And notice his back heel is just an inch or so off the ground. All right. The front foot and the back foot are sharing the absorption 50-50. While his head is trying to lift his torso as tall as possible, like it's pulling the rest of his body weight up. Notice how hard he's working at the shoulders. Notice how hard he's working at the neck. When he brings his arms forward, his shoulders don't hike up to hug his neck. His lats engage, like he's pinching paper at the armpits. So pinch a piece of paper at your armpits and take a deep breath into that pressure that you feel. As you do that, try to close your legs without moving them, but like a pair of scissors, close them. Front leg pulls back leg pulls forward, and see if that can make you a 1/4 inch taller.
Oh, that's a killer. I love that. All right.
Yeah, so hang on to that. That's the back pain reliever right there. When your adductor muscles, the groin muscles, and the hamstrings share force below the pelvis, they spare force, they spare the load above the pelvis at the spine. So that's it. That's the lunge decompression right there. It's like 10 of those breaths, 5 of those breaths, where you challenge the lat expansion, contracting your back muscles as you breathe against them, trying to increase the volume of the lungs. I can get much more
so
details.
I know it's just so crazy how I'm sewing machine already. And if you look at if my kid walked in and saw me doing this, he'd be like, what are you doing? You're doing nothing. But my right hip flexor is dying right now.
If you ever want to have an interesting challenge in life, come up with a damn good idea that just doesn't look all that impressive unless you do it really well. And then try to share it without advertising or marketing or anything like that. And just see what happens.
God, I know. I had the same thought. I was like, how do people even, take it?
Somehow, man, somehow they get it. Somehow people learn about it. It's really wild.
The last couple of years on the ski team, a lot of the guys were watching me do this at the gym, and they had no idea what I was doing, just like shaking their head and like thinking it was goofy looking and this and that. And then one by one, they'd have back pain, and I'd introduce them to them. And now I've got all the young guys on the team doing it, and they're like, started off being a joke, and now it's gotten a lot of guys. Well, I've gotten a lot of guys into it, and it's actually helping a lot of guys too. So it's funny because I do it like in the airport, like before I get on a plane, because I want to like unload before I sit on a plane for a long time. And if I'm with my wife, she like doesn't want to be standing next to me because it looks so goofy. So it's
either does mine. It's fine.
So it's one of those things that does like gets the muscles going, but it doesn't look like it's doing much at all.
Let's do the other side real quick because it's a split stance. Make sure you guys get the other side in. So
okay. Yeah, I just did the other side.
Okay. So Ted, we can kind of do a quick little walkthrough if you want. And just one of the things to correct, this will help some people watching. If you're able to see Ted, his elbows are being pulled back a little bit right now. And I want you to instead pull them wide as you can, like they're trying to pull your hands off your abdomen, but they can't. There you go. Now breathe into the space you feel just underneath and kind of wide of your shoulder blades. There you go. And now leverage that. As you inhale, think of that inward squeeze, that anchoring of the pelvis, like you're closing the legs together, and just cinch it all together by lifting the skull just a little bit. That will take the weight of your head into the front neck muscles. So try to take the weight of your skull into the front neck muscles by pulling the chin back. I often tell people to talk kind of like this. Don't look, so Johnny, don't look down so hard. Look up a little bit, and now pull straight back from right there. There you go. That's the engagement. Feel how high that is at the neck?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I can see the position better. The goal of a standing decompression or a lunge decompression, like what you guys are doing, is to create a long axis where the spine and the tailbone and the skull are on as long of an axis as possible. Tailbone is not tucking under you, it's pulling down and back. The skull is not tucking at the chin, it's lifting up and back. And that leverage is a shortcut, Johnny, to getting the spine curvatures back.
Okay, yeah, I just got like chills when I brought my when I brought my head up, I got like all through my shoulders. So
as long as it's not a stroke, man.
no, it's not tingly. But when I bring my head back here, is it okay for my shoulders to roll a little more forward like that? Or should I kind of
let's dial it in a little bit. Let's dial it in. So you feel how your hand is kind of placed on your hips right now? Do that little shock with your fingers and go thumbs at the rib cage, pinkies at the pelvis. Yep. Thumbs at the ribs, and now take your pinkies down to the pelvis like a shock sign. There you go. There you go. Now you got a big chest, and I can see the chest working. Try to take all of that inflation in a way that it pushes the shoulder blades out of the way.
This way?
No, other way. Pushes the shoulder blades apart, like they're riding the rib.
Oh, got it.
There you go. Now you'll feel the traps. I can see your neck muscles working. All I want you to think of is the cue. Pinch a piece of paper between the armpits and the arm. Just pinch. There you go. So that just got the back of the lats engaged. You feel that tension?
Yeah.
Now breathe into that back tension, like you're trying to push it out of the way, and you're going to nail it. And you're going to feel very connected, very strong. Yeah, I can see you doing it right. There's stuff to dial in, but that's good enough to get along with that.
Yeah. I thought we'd have a conversation while doing this, but it takes full on effort, full focus. Great.
I'm known within our small community for being extraordinarily sweaty and active while I teach this, because I like to show it really well. And I'm so always sitting there showing an exercise full on, just like trying to explain it to people and just. But you work really hard with these things. If you're doing it well, it gets harder and harder and harder as you do. I've been doing this longer than anybody. I'm 12 years in. I can keep my body pretty strong with mostly foundation training, and then I add, I surf and I swim and I do pull-ups, push-ups, and deadlifts with kettlebell deadlifts. Those are pretty much the primary force patterns that I train, and I'm doing pretty good with it. I'm not an Olympic skier, so it's different. But for a guy just trying to age and stay super active and strong, you don't have to do a tremendous amount. You just have to do things pretty well and repetitively.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was wondering, that's, I pretty much do pull-ups and push-ups and run and bike. I just was curious, like how, if pull-ups, if they're bad for you in some ways, or do you just have to make sure, because it's more of that forward action,
That forward action is so good for you, though. It's so good. That's why our body leans into it. It's comfortable. It's actually a very strong position until you go too far. An anterior dominant position. Look at an MMA fight. Look at a grappler.
Yeah.
Look at a rock climber. Those are anterior dominant sports that take people a little bit too far, but also keep people very healthy through life for the most part, other than some injuries that occur because of beating the crap out of yourself. What I would say is that the balance becomes increasingly important over time as we age. The balance between that forward anterior dominance, too open kind of yoga style, gymnast style, dancer style look. Between those two is this really nice structural integrity, this really nice position where your body pulls itself pretty well, absorbs most forces that it goes through pretty well, can jump, can run, can fall even, and do okay. And that's where we're trying to get people to stay.
Okay. You brought up surfing. Is there anything either of these exercises you recommend that would make me have a quicker snap? Because this is my problem, is I'm so slow to there. I feel like it's all my skiing. I have no mobility in there. Which one?
I have two, and one of them seems really easy. It seems like obnoxiously simple, but if you do it well and you practice it, it's going to be extremely powerful for not only your pop-up, but your entire hip range of motion. It's called a standing leg trace. I'm not going to show it on here, but you can look at, so anybody watching this that wants to learn, I think if I didn't already get you guys set up on the app, I will, and all that way you'll have the whole library. But if you want, everything we're talking about is very, very, very seriously detailed in many programs on my foundation training app, which is stream.my.
Okay, yeah. So the foundation training app is the place to find that. And what was that one called? Standing?
That one's the standing leg trace. You'll find it at the latter half of the baseline program, month.
Okay, cool.
Weeks like 8 or 9 or 10. And then the biggie for you, man, the biggie for everybody, any surfer, for any force producing athlete that likes to do planks, that likes to be strong in the abdomen, the 8-point plank is the founder is my baby. That's like that thing saved my whole life and career and made a whole trajectory of life for me by figuring out that position. But the 8-point plank is so cool. What it does, it reprograms your rib cage to stay behind you instead of in front of you.
Yeah.
It reprograms the serratus muscles and the transversus abdominis muscle to have the initiating reaction in a pop-up. I don't know if you know the surfer Brad Gerlach, but Brad Gerlach is a legend surfer and he's known for his style, and he's also a brilliant biomechanics person. I was blown away in conversations with Brad about how much he knows about the body, how much he understands the vectors and forces of surfing and of movement. In fact, he even has a movement program called Wave Key, which is like a martial arts approach to wave movement, just to surfing movements. But anyways, what Brad told me was the biggest mistake he sees people as they get older make on the pop-up is they look up while they're doing it. They extend their mid-spine as they're doing it. And if you looked at the back of me from my rib cage, I'm like about here to here, behind that is a curve that's a flexion curve. It needs to go behind me, not in front of me. So when I pop up on a surfboard, if I look up, that happens. What Brad told me is the first movement is just look down at the board, allow this to occur as you're popping up. And it just goes hips, torso, and boom, you're up. Another one, I have to tell you this one because I've been learning to surf for the last 15 years. I love it. I'm getting, I just love it. It's just the best thing I ever did. I did it this morning before this, and my family moved to Kauai so we could, really focus our life around being in the ocean more and helping a community that's focused on that. But when you get that 8-point plank down, when you get that pop-up down, you start to understand the other very important tip that I got. And I know people that ski surf and snowboard surf. When you're popping up, don't try to push yourself up off the board. Push the board down the wave. Just push the board down the wave. That came from my buddy Eric Antonsen, who was another very gifted surf coach. He's a really smart guy. And his mechanical thought process is efficiency. If I'm 200 pounds, it's much easier to push a 2-pound board away from me down a wave than to push 200 pounds up off the board. And that thought process leads to pulling yourself away from the board as you push it away from you. And that pull is the 8-point plank. So I want you guys to get good at that if you want to get good at surfing pop-ups.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, the 8-point plank, I've watched it. Funny, last night I was watching some videos with my son and the 8-point plank was out of there, and I jumped out of bed and tried to do it. I could tell.
Take it slow. Take it super slow, and remember that everything in foundation training is smaller movements are more valuable. Don't try to go far. Just learn the intricacies of each piece. Another person that just because I know a lot of people are going to watch this, and I want to make sure that I give legit credit where it's due. My surf knowledge comes from 3 places: Brad Gerlach, Eric Antonsen, and Kahea Hart on North Shore of Hawaii. Okay. Kahea is the best surf coach in existence, in my opinion. So just a quick
cool
tribute to those guys.
Yeah, no, we digress, but that was a question I had because that's what I'm working on right now, and I knew you had something for me, so I took that. But we got skiers and snowboarders on the line, so let's not digress here. All right, here we go. All right, next one is going to be, I believe it's the woodpecker. Here we go. Yeah, just the straight up woodpecker. So let's get into the woodpecker.
The names of these when you put together a movement protocol, you get to come up with names.
So how do you come up with these names?
I don't know.
How does the name foundation come up? It's funny because I like sci-fi, and I find Foundation.
Isaac Asimov.
Isaac Asimov is one of my favorite books, and so whenever I on Amazon try to send your book to somebody, I always am running into other foundation books too. So
no, and Isaac Asimov is he's one of the most prolific writers in history, and that's one of his many hundreds of books. But his books are, if you're a sci-fi person, they're amazing. They're really, really interesting. He's a very intelligent dude. I didn't know about him when I wrote the book, but I've learned quite a lot about him since I wrote the book. And since I made this foundation training. And I'm really impressed by who that guy was and the way he talked about the world. And he's a really interesting guy. Total genius. The main foundation training, the main foundation was originally Foundation Roots. Peter Park and I partnered up. Peter Park is how I met Lance Armstrong. He's actually how I met Kelly Slater. Peter is this world-class triathlete / trainer to the stars and world-class athletes. And Peter and I partnered to get the first book out to the world. And I gave Peter a foundation and these exercises and this protocol. And Peter brought in sort of some of his diet and training advice, but much more, he introduced it to his world. And he gave me a huge leap forward in getting this out to people that I would otherwise probably have never been able to meet. So that's where he came up. I think between the two of us, we kind of rounded to this main foundation. And yeah, it was a really interesting partnership where I got to deliver an idea and he got to take it with him to every session and every client encounter and every meeting that he was having. It was pretty cool.
And the woodpecker, here it is, how'd the woodpecker come about?
So you'll see as we get into the pose that it resembles those little wooden dolls that move on axis, and it's like a bird that's just kind of dipping its head in water.
Yeah.
So watch the angular motion that Evan goes to at the hip joint. So your same split stance as that lunge decompression, there's no change. So notice that your hips are square, your feet are strong. You start off 50-50, meaning your weight is front to back 50-50 even, and you're just trying to pull the back of your skull and your chest is high. A cue I give a lot is chin back, chest up. But I would now say chin up, then chin back. Let the weight of your head lift the whole time, not just retract and pull back. So on this one, you're not going to add that scissoring anchor component because you're going to do a little bit of a hip hitch. So as your spine gets really long with a couple of those decompression breaths, open up as much as you can, lift as big as you can, and notice that Evan just hinged his hips, just like in the founder. The hip joint traveled back as the torso angle changed because of the pelvis. There's no change in extension or flexion of the spine. Your pelvis is moving your torso as it draws back behind you. The tailbone should feel like it's lifting and retracting, lifting and pulling back. The back of the skull should feel like it's lifting and pushing forward to lengthen the back of the neck, and the weight of the head should be felt in the front neck muscles. When you take your arms forward, you're going to be about 80% of your weight over the front heel. So when the arms come forward, your front leg is going to do a lot of the work, and the lower back on that front leg side is going to be doing a lot of the work. If your knee moves forward as your weight moves forward, your quadricep will do a lot of the work. And this is not a quadricep exercise. So pull the knee up and back by pulling the hip back. And that front leg should be really challenged at the hamstring. And I think I keep them in here for another 20, 30 seconds. Do this until it feels powerful. The real trick here is using the stretch and tension you feel at the hamstring to leverage your body back up to a standing position, shortening the hamstring to lift the torso. And that's a very important teacher of what the hamstring muscle is. And then switch up and get the other side.
It's incredible. So good.
Anybody watching will notice that it's a lever. Your torso is being moved by the fulcrum of the hip joint. So your torso is not doing the movement itself. Don't extend, don't flex, just be moved by the powerful muscles that surround the legs and the hips. All right, so get as tall as you can before you hinge, big as you can be. And then when you feel powerful, start to shift that weight into the front foot without the knee traveling forward at all. So the hip travels kind of back as the torso reaches forward, like you're looking over a cliff edge. trying to find just a little bit, you can see the top of the rock, but you're trying to see the bottom of the cliff edge. You're trying to see where it intersects with the ground or the ocean below you. You're trying to get that last little bit. Take your arms forward, and that'll take go ahead.
I was gonna say when I got the hang loose and I'm touching my pelvis and my ribs, am I just trying to maintain that space basically?
Exactly, 100% accurate. You're trying to maintain that space. Just notice, watch what happens to your back if you shorten that space. Just feel it for a second. You can pull out of it.
Right, got it.
Now use the back of your head to get, the more your back of your head lifts, the more your lower spine will actually relax. So try to pull the back of the skull really long and breathe into the back of the ribs. And you guys can see the position that Ted's in, the position that Evan's in. They got this thing called a sphere of tension. And it's called that because it's extremely accurate. You can't push it together any harder, and you can't pull it apart any harder. It's an isometric, it's met in the middle. The lat muscles, so that pinch of paper at the shoulder blades, the pinch of paper at the armpits, that's important there. Use the lats.
Okay.
And then use that hand back of the leg to lever up. And come back to center.
Oh, that's such a killer. It's so good. Oh my God, it's killing me. It's great.
So I gotta kind of, because of who you guys are, I think you'll appreciate this story a lot.
I think people underestimate how finding like one little piece as an athlete, from the athlete side, as it can be very small, but if you find that one little piece, how great an impact, how much it can help you win or make you win. I remember I got patella tendonitis training in Hood one summer because I was messing around with the forward lean in my boots, and that led me to a doctor here, and it led me to a physical trainer, to a PT that was just an in-house PT, this girl named Emily Miller. And she started retraining the way I did my squats, like by doing really disciplined one-legged squats, keeping my knee back, all that stuff. And that little piece, as minor as that was, set me on a whole new trajectory as far as strength goes. And I started really, and if I a lot of other things happened at the same time, kind of simultaneously, but when I look back at it, that one moment, just finding that one trainer that retrained my muscles, I started winning pretty soon after that. So I mean, it happened, things like that. It works.
It's real. That's why performance enhancement is so legitimate. And that's why the best performance enhancement is sustainable, and it kind of is self-done and self-taught, or at least learned from somebody that is extremely well-taught and well-practiced. I'm excited you guys are bringing this stuff to the ski community. It's really good.
Yeah, we're going off here. Ted, should we do another, or do you have
we can do another.
All right, cool. Let's get to it. I mean, I feel so good even after those ones. I have been really not taking care of I've been running and stuff, but I've been skipping even on the yoga. So I need this in a bad way. So I hope everyone at home is doing them too. What's cool about these too is you can just jump up and do it behind your desk or whatever, or at the airport like Ted does. My mom used to stretch at the gas station. She used to, I'm pulling this other video up, but she would throw her foot up on the gas, on the gas whatever handle thing. So I started doing that. It really embarrasses my kids. I'm at the all right, here. This one's woodpecker with rotation. Let's do it.
So this one is now going to challenge two different angles of pelvic movement. So the woodpecker itself is a hinge, which is pelvic flexion, hip flexion. We're going to add rotation, which is going to challenge the butt muscle in particular. So the front leg, butt muscle, and hamstring are the recipients of this exercise, the benefactors of the exercise. You start in the exact same way, the lunge decompression. No difference whatsoever from the first two, okay? The elbows are wide. You're practicing that expansion of the axial skeleton, which is the rib cage, the spine, the neck. After 3 or 4 breaths that lift you and center you, you're going to hinge the hips back, go into that woodpecker position where you load the posterior chain of the front leg. The vast majority of your body weight, 80 to 90% of your body weight, is being held at the butt muscle, hamstring, and lower back of the front leg. Push the pieces of the leg into the ground at the big toe joint, the pinky toe joint. So now the rotation is a pelvic motion, only pelvis, only pelvis. It's not a twist of the spine. It's not a big movement. Watch as Evan rotates and kind of lengthens the outer edge of his front hip by drawing the medial hip towards midline. So the back leg is being drawn towards the medial leg, and it rotates his torso. But notice it's a rotation from the pelvis. Everything happens at the pelvis. All that movement is happening in his shoulders.
And the back foot doesn't turn.
The back foot doesn't turn at all. It's a small, think of your hip joint moving 2 inches and your torso moving 2.5 inches. Try that. Okay.
I really like the rotation ones because I feel like this is like awesome for stabilizing, especially like for us like ski racers. We get a lot of issues also like our thoracic and lumbar junction, and like the rotation piece I think is really great for helping stabilize that area.
Notice that Evan in this, you can see he's staying very wide at the back of his torso as he rotates. He's staying very broad. That's a very important piece of this. That thoracic expansion, the back of the rib cage expansion, has to stay there during the rotation. Then you use the butt muscle to bring yourself back to center, and then use the hamstring.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there it is. And then just switch it up.
It was insane how like not, I mean, good pain, you know, and like good workout that is. Crazy.
You're gonna, Johnny, we gotta touch base in like 6 months if you take this stuff. 6 months.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be kind of a major thing for you in this next phase of your life. So you're lining yourself up as tall as you possibly can. Something I say a lot is take up as much surface area as possible within your body and within your torso. Just find every tight spot and push it out of the way with your inhalation. When you move big with big joints, big wrists, big elbows, big fingers, big hands, big palms. Every part of you can be more active. And the rotation, again, watch Evan's rotation, especially on this one, you can see. There's length happening at his front leg butt muscle as he rotates. It's lengthening. And then he uses that contraction, that length, to come back to center. So if your right leg is your front leg, the right butt muscle gets tighter and tighter and tighter as you rotate, and then contracts you back to center.
Wait, so it's tighter and tighter as you rotate.
So which is your front leg right now, Johnny?
My right leg.
So your left shoulder should be moving down a little bit as your pelvis moves, and your right shoulder should be moving up a little bit as your pelvis moves. Yeah, there.
But is my okay?
And you should feel like your right butt muscle is absorbing more of your body weight as you rotate. Right there, it should be the pinnacle. And then you can contract it like a butt muscle contraction to move back to center.
But I'm rotating at the like in the hip joint, right?
100% in the hip joint. Yep.
Okay, but so the left shoulder is only turning as a result of that.
100%.
There's no spinal twist.
No spinal twist at all.
Have you moved away from the woodpecker with a spinal twist? Because I have seen some of your videos where you do have.
And the reason I have is because I just learned better over the years. That was, if you see those videos with a spinal twist, that's before 2011, before 2012.
Yeah.
And it won't hurt you. It's just when you get everything coupling together, and you really, what's happened is Foundation, the first book, was a training protocol, whereas Foundation has become a teaching protocol where we teach the body how to do very specific things. And one of the lessons for the woodpecker rotation is the butt muscle, the oblique, and the transversus abdominis. They don't change, they work together. One doesn't shorten as the other one shortens. It's like this cylinder at the torso has to be very powerful for the glute function to power as much as it needs to. And I'll be honest, my first book did not do as good of a job as it needed to of translating.
Yeah, because I've liked the old school, as you would have put it, rotation, because I feel like that is like so much what we get as skiers is like you get a lot of rotation between your lumbar and your thoracic, and that's like where you absorb a lot of the shock, is like the force from the ski gets put through your body, and then that's where you get kind of out of whack a lot of the times. Whereas
So-
like that rotation, I feel like is stabilizing that junction right there.
You're right, it is. But let me show you how to couple what we just talked about and do it together. Go into a woodpecker position again. And I want you to feel it. And so you're going to rotate your torso, but you're going to do it after your pelvis rotates. Okay.
Right.
So same thing we just did, which is hips first. Go into the hinge. Yep. Now arms forward, all the good stuff. So I want you to do the old school one first, the one you like. Just do that one exactly right there. Perfect. Now go back to center. Now all I want you to do is couple the two. So the first 10% of this movement is that rotational pelvic motion, and then the torso motion continues. The only thing I'm going to have you change is let that front shoulder, let that left leg shoulder lift as you rotate a little. Make room for it at the rib cage. There you go, right there. You feel the difference at that angle?
Yeah.
So that's much more stable at the thoracolumbar junction, much more stable.
I kind of like that like squeeze though when you're like, when you are square.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that area is like your lower lat into QL junk, like where it meets up with the QL is like really getting like a good squeeze.
And there's nothing, because you have taken the pelvis into that direction first, you can go much harder in that squeeze. You're not fighting. When the pelvis stays square and the spine rotates away from it, that's not a good rotation. It can create some pain at the low back, some compression. What you just did is you altered the platform of the pelvis to allow all of that rotation more effectively. So now it's going to be a stronger, more effective contraction for you.
All right.
So as long as he turns the pelvis first and then the end is the spine, that's okay?
Yeah. The pelvis is the initiation of the width. The limbs are the far end.
Cool.
It's awesome. So great.
Good. Adding to my repertoire.
Good.
Oh yeah. So Ted, what's your go? I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit, but what's your sort of your go-to? Like, what's your airport go-to? The Founder?
Yeah, I do Founder and the Woodpecker are the main ones. I also saw like on your Instagram page, you guys had one like a seating one where you have like have your hands in between your legs and you're squeezing the adductor and then doing the similar thing you're talking about, your chest, your elbow. Like,
let me see if I can get.
I think it's been great in the plane. Yeah, you can
So
show
it's a
us.
seated decompression. Same principles as everything else I teach in foundation training. My toes right now are touching. All right. My heels are separated, so it's like a wedge, like a ski wedge. You know, like you're learning it's a pizza slice. Toes, big toes touching, heels separated. My palms are going to be up but facing each other. So thumbs up. I'm trying to compress until my knees touch, but I'm keeping that separate by pulling my shoulders apart and therefore my palms apart. And I'm trying to press my heels down and my chest up. Okay, so I'm just tall as I can be. There's a constant inward force at the thighs and a constant downward force at the heels. You do this for like 30 seconds, by the way. You don't sit like this all the time. It's a corrective exercise that you do right away. And from the side, it looks like this. So I slid to the front of my chair. All right, I'm not sitting back like this. I slid to the front of the chair. My heels are more or less directly under my knees. My knees are compressing towards each other. And the back of my ribs is not doing this. It's trying to lift and grow. I'm trying to accentuate that.
Why is rotation inwards so hard for someone like me? I mean, I shake immediately. Is it for skiers, or is everybody like that, where everything in our life is externally rotating, or adducting, I guess, abducting, and
I was gonna say everybody's a little different. Everybody's definitely got different degrees of what makes them shake, but we usually find something that does somewhere. Internal rotation is really hard for glute dominant or quad dominant athletes because your legs are used to turning outward just a little bit. Your power stance has you turned out just a little bit. You're used to using your iliotibial band, your IT band, and the butt muscles more in a protective way than you are in a very functional the internal rotation, that small degree of internal rotation of the hip joint, elongates the tissue at the back of the hip joint, the butt muscle in particular, and the deep, deep external rotators underneath the butt muscle. That internal rotation is a very corrective part of everything we're teaching, because if your glutes are too tight and they're constantly squeezing in, you're thrusting your pelvis ahead of you. Always. It changes your center of gravity. It changes how your neck goes.
You're going like that.
Yeah, it changes literally, like every level of the spine above it is altered, and every level below the neck, which is also altered because of that glute squeeze. It's like both ends are just malfunctioning. They're too tight. They're restricted. Yeah. So the glute squeeze is more or less turned off by the adduction and internal circumduction of very specific muscles that line the groin. That's why you feel that shake in the groin when you're doing this.
Man, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
Dr. Goodman. Yeah. This was,
I love sharing this. I can't believe I get to share this. I'm so happy. It's great. I hope you guys get the benefit that I've seen so many people get. And over the years, I think you will.
Yeah, and I think it's great for you need to, if you're a skier, snowboarder, skier particularly, the fact that Ted is signed on to this and doing it is all you really need to know. I mean, I can't stress how much you need to work on those muscles that don't typically get worked on. So this is a great kind of easy way to do it. And you said the Foundation app is the best. It sounds like the Foundation app is the best way to go, right? You sign up for it, you pay a fee, that's it, right?
Yeah, so we have a lot of options. We have our best online catalog is definitely ours. Just go to stream.foundationtraining.com. In addition to that, we have about 1,200 instructors around the world. So we have a lot of instructors that can teach us pretty damn well. Some of them extraordinarily well, and some of them are very gifted skiers near British Columbia, near Lake Tahoe, near Mammoth, near, so many between Copper Mountain and Keystone and Boulder. So there's the ski communities out there. We do have people. We have amazing instructors in Norway, that are very active ski coaches as well. So we do have a little bit of an imprint around ski communities where you can learn foundation training individually, but you probably don't need to. I love it if you do. I love if you support our instructors, but you can also learn it for free on YouTube and go pretty far. So between for free on YouTube and coming to like a certification course, there's tons of entry points for you to learn this work.
Great. Okay, and finally, since this is an educational series from Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, and Ted, sells his gear on here. I want to show some of the items that from Shred. I've tried all this equipment. I love it. Particularly this back protector down here was something I didn't even know I needed as just an old man skiing, and now I love them. My kid is a free rider and he's required to wear them. That's how I got turned on to them. And I did try all the other ones, and these guys by far make the best one. Ted, tell us a little bit about the back protection. You've been in the back protection game longer than anyone. I mean, I think pretty much brought it to market with SlideTech. Tell us why your back protection is the way to go.
Yeah, we were the first people to do a soft back protection. So there was the hard shell back protection in the market before, but that was really limiting your range of motion, how much you can move in the turn, but also wasn't meeting the same level of safety. So for me, like in Shred, everything is based around like allowing you to be better and having more fun around the slope. And one of the things that allows you to be better and be on the slopes more is if you're protected, and if it's something that's comfortable and that you want to wear, you're going to wear it. So that was really our thought process behind, especially like our latest back protector, our Flexi, which is super, super thin. As you know, like you wear under your jacket, and as it gets warm, you barely recognize it's even there. So that's been huge. Ski racing people have been wearing back protectors forever, but we've seen a lot of snowboarders over the last couple of years take it on, a lot of freerider guys. So definitely something that's like starting to take off, especially more so in Europe. But every one of our products at Shred it's not trying to like have a gimmick. It's trying to actually like solve a real problem. Like I think about like, oh, I need larger field of view when I ski race, because I need to be able to see out of my tuck and like see further down the course. But then that brings into, if you're out free skiing, seeing somebody come out, somebody swipe you from the side or whatnot. So all these things, that we try to do with Shred are trying to solve a problem and trying to solve something that I feel like in my own performance, but then also actually like translates to the general consumer. So that's kind of the neat project that I have with Shred, is trying to solve my own problems that are greater problems than for people in the ski and snowboard industry.
Well, yeah, and there's no one better to sort of test the equipment. And this stuff is amazing. I love the naked back protector. I have both of those items. And then I made a picture of your little free ride team down here, because obviously everything's born and raced for you, and and you really just made race helmets for a while, but now you've got the free ride helmets going up in the right hand corner. Tell us a little bit about that one.
So the one you have there, that's the Notion. So I mean, our style was always inspired by trying to like be more fun than race. Racing's like old and staunch, and I think my generation of skiers was like the first to like throw 360s and like go wanting to be powder skiing when it snowed instead of bashing gates and stuff like that. So I think I wanted to have a company that represented that level of fun that ski racing is, but also like I grew up watching ski and snowboard movies and really loving watching like what those guys do in the park or in the backcountry, and doing some of that a little bit myself. So I wanted to be inclusive in that. And especially when we started originally, that was a pretty revolutionary thought. The industry is very segmented. And, if you were a free ride guy and you were wearing whatever company that was sporting free ride stuff, they hated and didn't market towards ski racers or whatnot as well. Or you hated snowboarders, which I thought was ludicrous. Growing up in Park City, I had a lot of friends that were snowboarders and free riders, and I wanted to create something that, encompassed all those needs, but also was like a fan of all those different aspects of the sport as well.
Absolutely. And I've seen you rip the Warren Miller movies, and we'll hopefully do some more of that when you officially retire, which doesn't seem to be ever. I hope you never do, but when you do, I look forward to seeing you in all those Warren Miller films. And then the Shred goggles up here, I think, what is that, the Amplify on the left? Or I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Amazify there on the left. Yeah.
What's new?
Yeah.
Amazify on the left. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing we're always working on is lens technology. So anybody who goes out there on a flat light day knows it can ruin your day. We've worked with MIT over the last few years working on our contrast boosting lenses. So in ski racing, like that can be the difference between seconds when you have sun or when it's a little bit foggy. And when you're a normal person going on a day skiing, if it's flat light, it's hard to have fun. So having a lens that helps boost that contrast on the snow is a huge game changer. And so we've been lucky to work with MIT in testing products there and trying to improve the contrast side of things. So that's something I'm really proud of, is our lens technology.
All right, good stuff. All that stuff's available at peterglenn.com and or at the stores down there, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Once again, thank you to Dr. Goodman. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Ted Ligety.
Yeah, thank you.
That was an amazing experience for myself, just to be selfish. And there he is again, Dr. Goodman with his fans. And you have two new fans right here, Dr. Goodman, myself,
you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Ted Ligety, and look forward to seeing you guys all in the future. Let's go make some turns. Cheers.